Hey guys, I'm Corey. This is Confusing Bits. Let's talk about keyboards today. Um, I am I have delved deeply into the somewhat deeply into the keyboard enthusiast community, and have come back out alive with maybe some wisdom that I would like to share today. So if that sounds interesting, stick around. I started out just with regular old, like kind of Dell keyboard that you get with your computer or whatever. And to be clear, when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about it from point of view of someone who works on a computer all day, every day, like 8 hours a day, software developer, you're typing a lot, and actually that the keyboard is for getting things done, not for looking pretty, not for sounding great, not for necessarily feeling great, but for being productive. But I started on. I did the early start of my career on just regular old Dell membrane computer. It's this kind of style computer. Most of the inexpensive keyboards that you get, the keyboards that you get with your computer, or a lot of the inexpensive keyboards, even aftermarket computer keyboards that you might even pick up like Best Buy or a gaming keyboard or whatever. A lot of those are still membrane keyboards, and they're kind of mushy and I mean they get the job done. They're bulletproof. They're cheap, but um, if you're probably tuning in because you want to learn a little bit more about what's available out there. So you're probably trying to move past that. The first thing is you want to look up is a mechanical keyboard. So what is a mechanical keyboard? Mechanical keyboard uses like mechanical switches in there instead of like a rubber dome that just gets squished and hits a contact plate on the bottom. That's a membrane keyboard. You have an actual like physical switch, and it looks. This is an example of one. If there, you can see this one's actually a Kale box white. We'll talk a little bit about the colors and stuff, but you see you hear that clicky sound. There's also a tactile kind of bump as I press it down. It gives a little bit more resistance and then releases and then bottoms out. And then when it comes back up, this one in particular actually clicks on the way back up. Um, this is in particular an MX style switch. You can see that it's got that bottom post with the two little dinghies on the bottom. This is the most popular style. Most of the keyboards that out there that are going to be mechanical keyboards, most of them, especially in the enthusiast community, are going to be MX style switches. Um, MX was originally patented switch by a company called Cherry. That's where you hear like Cherry MX Red or Cherry MX Blue or Cherry Whites or Cherry Clears. That's what they're talking about are different switch types, and Cherry is the name of the manufacturer. And then there's usually a color or something else that goes along with it that describes a little bit more like red is a linear, and then blue is a clicky switch. Like this is a quickie switch. White is a clicky, usually a quick clicky style switch, and it's just by convention. The color isn't like some magic language. You just know because you know blues are clicky. It's just part of the lingo, and it's literally the switch will usually it's white because the switch is white. You know, it's that's where the color comes from. We call it white because there's no other. It's not like they have a brand or a model number or anything like that. That it's just the color. And this is made by Kale. This is like an off-brand of so the patent expired on the MX style switches, and Kale is another manufacturer, and they make this set. They make a white, but this one, the stem actually you see the little the like square like little box that goes around here. Normally in an MX style switch, you see that little cross post in the middle. That's usually that little cross post in the middle is all that's on there for that stem. But Kale has a variation of their switches, which have box around there, and they're usually a heavier switch, a heavier, stiffer switch. So this is like the box around here actually is the thing that seats into the keycap and makes it a little more stable. So this design is meant to have a little bit more key stability, but that's what they call this, a Kailh box white. Kailh white, and has the box stem, so it's Kailh box white. These are my favorites. You won't know your favorite until you buy keyboards and use them on a full keyboard. You can get like switch sample packs, which have different switches, and I'll give you some idea what you might like, but you won't know until you fill out your whole keyboard with that type and type on it for a week or two whether you like that type. One of the reasons why I wanted to make this video is because there's so much lingo and stuff, and there's a lot of like people get really snooty about the whole keyboard enthusiast community gets really snooty about keyboards and stuff like that, and you either have already seen it or you will see it after this one. You start looking around, you'll start seeing people doing keyboard reviews, and they got the mic really close to the keyboard and doing do 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 and hitting all hitting the space bar and seeing how the space bar sounds, and let's see if there's any rattle in the shift key, and they got this particular sound that they want to look. These are people who don't use keyboards to actually get things done, as far as I can tell. That's whole total nonsense. The whole premium custom keyboard thing is all about this mythical sound, or how a keyboard is supposed to be. At least all the YouTube influencers, they're all into that. And from what I can tell, and it's complete hogwash. Seriously, if you go do a blind test between a bunch of different keyboards and tell me you could tell a really big difference between one keyboard and to the next, you know, it's a bunch of it's a bunch of hogwash in my opinion. Anyway, so after I got I had the Dell mechanical keyboard, I thought I would go and get a nice keyboard. And since I'm a gamer anywhere, I started looking at like gaming keyboards. So a lot of gaming keyboards have mechanical switches in them. You know, I went to like Reddit keyboard forum or whatever, and one of the ones that they were recommending at the time was the Glorious GMMK keyboard. And I thought I might go, so you can get different keyboards of different size, like layouts and stuff. And so this will be like a full size keyboard. You also have keyboards without like the numpad, and that will be like a 10 keyless keyboard. And then you have smaller form factors that might cut out more, which I'll show you in just a minute. And those will be like a 75% keyboard or 60% keyboard. There's tons of variations. Really, the only standard layouts are like the full and the 10 keyless variations. You get below that, and then everything gets weird. But the keyboard I went with right out the gate was this Glorious keyboard, and I came with brown switches. But the reason why I got this keyboard in particular, it was one of the few that was special. I didn't care that it was wireless, because it's always on my desk. It's always charging. Why do I need a wireless keyboard? But one of the reasons why I wanted this keyboard in particular is because it was relatively inexpensive. But you can change out the different keycaps, so you can get different keycap sets and stuff like that. But this one in particular, so you see this one, this is the brown. This is what's called a tactile switch. So you see this the brown stem right here. And I don't know if these are Kailh browns or not. I'm sure. Or Glorious browns. I don't know. But this one in particular is hot swap. And I would recommend, if you whatever you choose to do, do I have the puller? I don't have the puller on me. If I can do it by my hands. I'm not gonna do that. I got it right here. There we go. All right. So the keys come, they're not soldered in. You see, it has a little socket down in there, and you could plug it in. So I could take literally this brown switch and pop in this other white switch in here, just like so. And now I have customized. Yeah, now I have a clicky switch. The other ones are tactile. It doesn't have that ping. And this one in Kel in particular has a ping on the down, and then one on the up. It's extra readily. Thankfully, I don't have any office coworkers that will complain about my my keyboard sound. But anyway, but this is what's on. This is a hot swap keyboard. And can I get this back on? There are pullers that come with this stuff, but I didn't come prepared. Yeah, it comes out. This one does have it has like a keycap puller. You just plop it on there and it stashes in the back. There is a metal, like actual switch puller that I thought was down here, but it's not. But that's what I would use to actually pull the actual switch out. Anyway, and the good thing is about these boards, if if something breaks or whatever, you can just change out the key switch. You can change out the switch, and your keyboard's going to be that. Well, if you get a membrane keyboard and the key goes out, you got to throw out the old keyboard. With these mechanical keyboards, you can just change out the switch, swap out the switch with a new one, and you're hunky dory again. But this was the one I got. I went with it. This is called like a 60% layout. As you see, there's no arrow keys. There's no like, it's missing like these buttons here, the insert, home, and page up and page down, delete and end. It's missing those. They are function keys. There is a function key layer like you have on your laptop. You can press function and then get your like F keys or sound up and down and stuff like that. You do a similar thing on this keyboard as well, but it also has RGB and all that stuff, so it glows nice and pretty and stuff. This was my first fancy keyboard. I'd had like Microsoft keyboards in the past, Logitech keyboards in the past, but this was my first like mechanical keyboard with RGB and all that jazz and backlighting, and like the lights shine through in the middle, so if it's low light or wherever, I can see that it's like lit up. But I love this keyboard. This was a great keyboard. I went with the 60% because I knew I wanted to stretch myself and figure out what if I can get away with a smaller keyboard. I will say if you are going to get a new keyboard or something like that, for productivity, I would say at the very least go ahead and get a 10 keyless, unless you specifically do a crap ton, like literally every hour, every other hour you're doing calculator or data entry style stuff with the numpad. Unless you are literally doing this like every hour or so, just go ahead at the very least get a 10 keyless keyboard. And the reason why is it makes the ergonomics of being on the desk so much better, because normally when you have your regular keyboard, you'll be typing on the keyboard and then you have to go to the mouse. Well, if you have the 10 keyless or smaller mouse, then you only have to move that far. But if you have the full size keyboard, then it feels like after you go back, it feels like you're reaching across the table to touch your mouse because your keyboard's way off here. You're typing over here, you're typing right here, right? But you feel like you're reaching way over here to get the mouse because you have so much further to go. Whereas, you would be typing and here's your mouse, typing and here's your mouse, typing and here's your mouse. It's a much more ergonomic thing if you can get away with it. And a lot of people miss, like, if you go this small, a lot of people miss the arrow keys like right off the gate. but I'll say at the very least get a 10 keyless. But I was very happy with this one. The company actually came out with like a premium pro version of a keyboard that was basically, so you had like premium keyboards. Most of them were like gaming keyboards, and then after you got into that, then you would have to go into the so-called custom keyboard scene, where you had to get a keyboard kit and you had to do soldering and all of that jazz, and you had to build the keyboard yourself, and you had to do group buys and all of that jazz, and wait 6 months to get your supplies and stuff like it was a whole ordeal. But Glorious came out with a custom like keyboard, but you could buy it pre-built, and so that's what I bought. And I love this keyboard. This is the GMMK Pro, and this is what's would be preferred as a 75% layout. You still have arrow keys right here, right? But you still have like some of those keys, the home, row, in, page up, page down, and stuff like that. You still have some of those here and available, and you have function keys again. So you really only miss, I think this one's really only missing like print screen or something like that. You basically get all of the functionalities you need out of keyboard with this, and I love this. I had this, this was my main keyboard for like 2 years straight, and like as soon as I got this, it became my main keyboard. And it's hefty. This is like solid aluminum. You can kill a man with this thing. Like, this is blunt force trauma. You will hurt somebody with this thing. Do not drop this on your foot. You will be going to the doctor. You will be visiting the doctor if you drop this on your foot. That's how heavy it is. I think it's like 3 pounds or something like that. It's a beast. And it feels really premium. I did, so this was, so when I got this one, what I first wanted to do was I wanted to play around with different keys. Specifically, I wanted a cheap hot swap keyboard, because I didn't know which types of keys. So I bought clear switches. I bought clear switches or linear switches, so they're very light actuation force. And then I got some Kailh-Box whites. I got another thing called Pandas, which is another variation of key switch. I tried out like 4 or 5 different types of switches, and that's how I arrived at I like heavy, clicky switches, and that's how I ended up with these Kailh-Box whites. But that's what I have on here, Kailh-Box whites on here. And you'll notice the keys here are a little bit different as well from here. You see, these types of keys are like really squarish, and there's the profile is that profile on the sun. You can see they're not all the same height, you know. So each of these key sets have different profiles, and this is called an SA profile, which is, you see, if you would try to say it, it gets a little taller, it's a little bumpier. The keys are like more concave. Your fingers kind of sink into it, and they get narrower at the top. This is like an older, like console style keycap, and I love it. This was a premium set that I didn't get it from Glorious. I got it from a drop on drop.com. I got a key set for, I think they're called, I think it's called an SA profile or something. I don't know all the terms or everything, but there are different types of keyboard, like keycap profiles. And this is one of the things. So that's why I was on this one for 2 years. Like, I found my end game with this one. Plus, when I got this, when I ordered it, they said that you would be able to reprogram it. Like, there's a microcontroller on here that you can reprogram the way the keys behave themselves. So you don't have to run any software on your computer. You don't need to run a driver on the computer or nothing. All the software is running like in here, and you can reprogram your keyboard. I never ended up doing that because they they kind of oversold how easy that would be, at least as I understood it at the time. And then they changed. There was some controversy whenever they did. It's all sorted out now, but at the time there was like this was like the first batch. So all the later batches, they ended up getting a different software package or something like that, and called it like a headache. So I never ended up bothering with the programmability of this keyboard. I just use it pretty much as stock. I do use. I would like. I did play around to reprogramming some of these side keys here to do different things, but I love this keyboard. And this is on my gaming machine. This is my primary this one sits in the box. I put it back in its box. I don't even use it anymore. This is like my main gaming machine thing. This was my main programming keyboard. The keyboard that I used at work, but it was replaced by yet another custom keyboard. So I went really small, and then I went back up a size, and I was like, well, let's really dive into the reprogrammability and see how far I can push it. And I saw a bunch of people talking about, well, how few keys can you really get away with? And I saw a couple of convincing YouTube videos. Plus, I thought it would be fun to build my own. This is a Korn keyboard. And yes, you can do all the stuff those bigger keyboards can do. You can do it on this relatively ergonomically, because the design for this keyboard here, just to lay it all out, is you're never more than one one button away from another key. So most of the time your fingers are right here, so you could only, every key is at most one finger movement away, right? So you're never doing those contortion moves and stuff. So if I like need to do my arrow keys, you would like hit like one of the keycaps are not labeled right. This is just a standard kit, but you would like hold this, and then I would be able to do like up, down, left, right, or something like that. By pressing and holding, you basically do different combos of function keys would give you all of the keys that that were available on the keyboard. And I used this for, I don't know, about 2 months or so or something like that. Honestly, I probably would have gone with it longer, but I put this together. Literally, it came as a bag of parts. And I had to solder the switches on. I had to put the little microcontroller on. I had to do the little power switch right here. There's a battery in here that I had to solder on. I did everything from A to Z, put this thing together from parts, from a bare PCB. And it was a lot of fun. I'm glad I had the experience. I will never do it in my life. And that gets me to the point why I will never do it again, is because I'm horrible at all of those things. And it's a complete waste of my time to be doing something like that, because these things were really flaky. I had horrible reliability issues, and it's my fault. It's not the fault of the build here, not a fault of the design. It's not a fault of the components. I bought the kit. I have nobody else to blame. I put this together poor quality because it's the first time I really done a whole lot of soldering. You have to do, I think there's like 5 solders for every you had to solder the LEDs, you had to solder the switches, you had to solder a diode on there. So there's like 6 solders per key, plus all of the microcontroller. It was a bunch of soldering, guys. It took me like a week of like nightly soldering several hours a day to finally get these all done. And I don't have the best eyesight either, so I'm really glad I did. By the way, this is called a Korn. This layout, this is not a brand. It's a layout. It's open source. You can go on GitHub and look up, and they have the plans for it. You can actually get the plans for it, and you can send off to a PCB printer, and they'll print you off your own PCB if you want it to, or you can order a kit like I did. from somebody who puts that kind of stuff together of all the little bits and bobs and little brass standoffs and the the plexiglass and all of that stuff and the frosted glass. Somebody that puts it all together, but there's no one company that kind of like owns this brand of keyboards. It's called a Korn. This layout is called a Korn layout board. So you just call this the Korn keyboard. And this is my first Bluetooth. That's another thing too, is I wanted to try wireless. Because I was like, yeah, everybody keeps wanting wireless keyboard. Well, let me see what all the hoopla was. Well, I learned that I didn't need wireless because it was a nightmare. This drained at a different rate as this one, and this one had to talk to this one. It couldn't talk directly to the computer. So if the main one went out, then both keys went out. If the other one went out and you only had one would be working at a time, it was a nightmare. It's totally not worth the headache. I was always wanting to keep them plugged in all the time because I just want to come up to my computer and go. I don't want to be worried about my keyboard's dead. Let me go pull out and charge my keyboard. I'm not doing all of that jazz. I just want to go, right? And so that was another lesson learned, is that that wasn't a priority for me to have a wireless a wireless keyboard. But like I said, just to swing back, this was my end game. The only reason why I wanted to go further than this really was because I wanted to try that ortholinear. And that was another thing that pushed me. I wanted to try how small I could get. I wanted to try an ortholinear layout to see if it made a difference. And this told me everything I needed to know, which was, yes, it makes a humongous difference. It's going to kill your typing. It killed my typing. I can't type on this keyboard. I'm almost back to hunting and pecking on this keyboard because I'm not used to this contortionist layout anymore. The way that the keys are like sideways instead of being straight. And so I could barely type on a regular keyboard anymore. So that's the caveat, right? But I found my new yin game, and it's this. This is a Glove 80. There's a matching one for the other hand as well. This happens to be wireless, but I keep them plugged in all the time just because there's only one variation. But this was manufactured by somebody, and the two key things that I wanted to try with this one is I wanted to try. I don't necessarily need to go all the way down to that few numbers of keys, but I did want to try this curved. You see how that just fits in my hand, the natural arc of my hand. I'm like never stretching to reach even I can get all the way up to the function keys and it doesn't feel like I'm stretch. It feels like I'm stretched. That amount of stretch just to even get to the function row feels like the stretch just to get to the number row on a regular keyboard. Getting to here from home feels as much of a stretch as getting from home to here, if that makes any sense. Just how big of a difference having that curve on it. And this also has a larger thumb cluster, which I don't really need, but this is great. And I have been using this for 2 weeks now, and there's no go back. I can't go back. I play World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft, if you don't know, is a really complicated game, and you have like dozens of abilities that you need. So you need like a bunch of things like just a key press away if you're going to play at a high level. And I've been playing it a long time, and I get frustrated if I can't play at a high level. So I have over the years acquired some peripherals that help me do this. One, I have a Naga gamepad. It's called an Orb Weaver, whatever, and it's basically kind of like this but flat. It's just a gamepad, and you can move with your thumb and typing it. And when I first got that, it was a huge learning curve to go from the regular keyboard to just this like tiny keyboard, one-handed keyboard thing. It was a huge adaptation for me to do. And the same thing, I had a mouse. I went from a standard like 5 button mouse to an MMO mouse, which has 12 buttons on the side of it, like a little keypad on the side. Um, but I will not, and that's how I play World of Warcraft over the years. That's what I built up to, and I will never play World of Warcraft. I will never play a game of the complexity, another MMO or any other game that's the same level of complexity as World of Warcraft, without that type of setup. I will never go back to a standard keyboard and mouse just because it's so much better. And that's how I feel about going with this. I will never go back. Maybe I don't use this particular glove AVs. These are used, by the way, these are using slightly different switches. This is what's called a chalk style switch. You see how it's really a thin switch, and you see these keycaps are really thin. They're more like the keys that you get on a laptop or something. I don't particularly care for that, but it's not a big deal for me to have this. But it hasn't been. I thought I would. I thought I wouldn't like it, but I don't really mind. Having used it in practice, I don't really mind. It's more or less. It's a similar experience to this. I prefer this type of keycap. I prefer this switch weight. I prefer this amount of movement for the switches and everything. But if it lets me have this ergonomic feel or whatever, I don't really mind. There's another ergonomic keyboard company called Kinesis. They also make they make another they make a similar like curved keyboard as well. Several different variations of like this curved keywell kind of keyboard. And they do like standard size thickness style keycaps from what I can see, but it's obvious that it's a highly custom key set because you can't use this profile in this curved layout. The keys literally won't fit, right? Um, so it's kind of it was one or the other. I knew I was going to go with the Kinesis or this Glove 80. I decided to go with a kind of a smaller indie style company or whatever, just to because they seem to be doing good work. But this was their first product that they came out with, this Glove 80, and I love it. Like I said, I am not going back. It feels a little cheap. This is all plastic. It's lightweight. There's nothing about this feels premium. It doesn't feel low quality, but it doesn't feel. I'm coming from in game, right? I'm coming from this thing that feels. This feels like money, right? And this feels like a child's toy, um, uh, but it's fantastic. I've been using it for 2 weeks. I will say a note: if you do start getting into weird layouts, first of all, if you're just wanting to be productive, I would say go ahead and get like a 10 keyless at a minimum. Just get a standard 10 keyless keyboard with real mechanical switches. You can get one from like Glorious, which makes decent ones that will be hot swap. I do recommend that whatever you get, make sure it's at least hot swap so you can change out and you could try different. You're not going to know which key set, and they're relatively inexpensive to get a whole new set of switches to try on. And it is tedious to switch them all out. I'm not going to lie there, but it's a whole lot better than buying a whole new keyboard. But you'll do that a few times, get you some linears, try linears for a little while. Uh, Usually, if you boil them out of the box, they're going to be browns. Most of the keyboards that you can find are going to get a key switch that is brown, which is like an MX brown, which is like what's in here. Some of them let you choose, but I would at least make sure you can get a hot swap. Make sure you get at least 10 keyless, and then you can figure out. Don't spend a whole bunch of money. You don't know what you like yet. Think of it as a learning experience, and try not to get one that requires like a bunch of. You have to install software. You should have a keyboard that just works like a keyboard. I can take my keyboard and unplug it from my Mac and go plug it in my PC, and it's going to work the way it's supposed to work. You don't have to install any drivers or anything like that. Don't get anything weird. You know, I will say, uh, when I got the RGB thing, I didn't realize how much I would like the RGB. I'm like, it's really, like almost sad to admit how much I like the pretty colors. To see a little wave of rainbow come across, I liked it more than I care to admit. But so I've had RGB on every one that I had, even that custom one. I was like, I have an RGB on there, but I never got to use it because it just drained the battery in like 2 hours. It would be drained the battery, so I didn't even get to use it. But we built it in anyway. But I would recommend at least getting the getting hot swap keys. Make sure you get at least a 10 keyless. You don't need that. You don't need the numpad at the bare minimum. Um, I do really think this is if you can get by on a laptop keyboard, and almost everybody can, then you can get by with something like a 75%. Now, 75% is not a standard layout, so one manufacturer's 75% might be different from another manufacturer's 75% keyboard. But in general, it's going to have 75% is going to have the function keys, and the arrow, and then the arrow keys as well. Um, that's if you're being you're a programmer, you probably still want to have quick access to function keys. That's why I say that. If you all you do is writing or something like that, like I said, I'm talking about for software developers and people, actually getting work done, not just typing emails, actually getting work done. But yeah, there was something else I wanted to cover before I left. I can't believe I've been talking about keyboards for 30 minutes. Oh my god. I'm gonna post this in my work Slack, the engineering channel, just as a guide or something or other. They're gonna be. I'm already notorious for my rambling, and I'll get even more of a rap for that. But anyway, I love this keyboard. Um, but yeah, get the hot swap. Get a 10 keyless. There was something else that I definitely wanted to cover, but geez, I know as soon as I turn this off, I'm gonna be mad that I didn't include it. Oh, a couple of vendors you might want to look at. So you have like a lot of gaming companies have gaming keyboards, but I've never used it. This is the entirety of my like keyboard experience for the most part, is the stuff that I have shown you. So I can't attest to other manufacturers, but I do hear good things about a company called Keychron that makes some fairly inexpensive but decent but good quality mechanical keyboards, like real mechanical keyboards. That's called Keychron. There's several different ones. I'm sure you'll see them coming up in the YouTube listings of the keyboard people, but that's probably another good ones that I've seen a couple of reviews. It seemed it was one of the ones that I had, because I had to keep track of things because I was looking for different keyboards. That was one of the things that did kind of come up, and I was glad to have. Oh, there's another gotcha in the keyboarding space. There's like the software that's used to program these keyboards. Sometimes the manufacturer has like this custom software. A lot of them have window dressing over one of two other open source solutions. One of them's called ZMK and one of them's called QMK. Uh, I'm going to mess one of them up. I think QMK is the one that's easy. So there was some sort of so there was like an open source solution for these programmable computers. Everybody contributed. It has really nice software. You could do this online configurator, and it would do everything that you needed to do. And I think that's QMK. Um, the only problem is for whatever reason, I have no idea. for whatever reason, there was some kind of licensing problem, some licensing issue that project cannot use Bluetooth, a Bluetooth driver or whatever. For some reason, that project can't include it for some kind of licensing reason. Like, I guess the license that they would get from the Bluetooth Authority or something, that driver is incompatible with the license for the open source software or something, I'm guessing. But anyway, point being, they couldn't do it. So that there was this another project called ZMK, which does do the Bluetooth, which means you could do wireless keyboards with that. So that's kind of like the divide, as I understand it. That's the divide between the different, like, custom keyboard software, custom software for custom keyboards solutions, between QMK and ZMK. Is one of them was the first project, but it couldn't do wireless keyboards because of a licensing issue with Bluetooth. And then you have the second one, which is less easy to use, less robust, less mature, but it does have Bluetooth support. This one was, I think, ZMK. I never did mess with that, but I did run into, I think this was supposed to have been QMK, but they had to change out the chips. There was some this was COVID time, so they had to change out suppliers for the chips, and so mine never really, I don't think, ever got compatibility for for QMK. But this one, I had to use QMK, and I had to set up a repo on GitHub, and it did a build system, and you had to edit these text files, and then you had to get the artifacts and download the artifacts and drag them onto the device and flash the device. It's an entire headache. Another reason why I do not recommend you going down this route, even for software developers, that was tricky for me. I've probably been doing software development for 10 years, and that was still a complicated mess of nonsense that I had to go through just to get the software onto this keyboard. Just the stock build, just the stock layout, no customizations or anything, just to get that on this board was I had to jump through all of those hoops. But point being, both of the softwares are not easy to use. They're not, in particular the ZMK, the wireless one, whichever one that was, is not particularly easy to use. I hear the other one has an online configurator that mostly lets you configure stuff, but if you go the custom route, you're going to have to deal with QMK, ZMK, usually, that kind of stuff. But if you get like a manufactured product, I think this is QMK. So if I want it to customize the layout, I have to do the same nonsense that I had to deal with that thing. Which was, now that I've done it, is not that big of a deal, but I don't know how easy that would be for somebody who's not technically inclined. I'm not going to remember what it is that I was forgetting. But yeah, so get a Keychron keyboard or Glorious keyboard, or there's a few other ones. So make sure you're getting a Hot Swap keyboard. Make sure you're getting at least a 10 keyless. And dip your toes in, and don't get caught up in the snooty freaking hype around the snobbery around custom keyboard. It doesn't sound right. It has too much of a ping. This thing rattles too much. And these people have nothing better. They have no problems in their life. They're worried about their shift key. Their shift key rattles, and it's a nightmare. And I can't understand this fragileness. But anyway, anyway, that's our keyboard talk. We're done here. I hope you found this helpful, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.